Hello everyone! Oh my god, have I been waiting for this one. I mean... We're going to go through all the ups and downs for Strange New Worlds Season 2, Episode 7, Those Old Scientists. Okay, so we're going to do things a little bit differently this week because of, well, I mean, if you've seen the episode, you understand. So, would you please take a walk with me to cetacean observations? Of course, normally we do cetacean observations at the end of the video after we've gone through all of the ups and downs. However, there is just simply so much to get through in this episode that if we did that, you'd have to go for a coffee break, maybe come back in 3 hours. You know what, you could probably watch Oppenheimer before I get to the cetacean observations if we do it the traditional way. So we're gonna do the ups and downs and the cetacean observations actually at the same time. So we're going to do it as we're going through the episode, right? I will also be able to mention, thankfully, some bits of the Ready Room, which was released early this week as well, to say that we've had a bit of a weekend. Don't forget to check out the videos on the Lower Decks Season 4 breakdown and trailer breakdown, and of course the Strange New Worlds trailer for Subspace Rhapsody. I'm so excited. And the Discovery Season 5 teaser clip as well. So all those videos, by the time this drops, all those videos will be out and available, and I'm presuming they're going to be linked somewhere around here. So last thing before I jump into it is that for just £2 a month, you can keep Chris alive with the cost of a coffee if you just subscribe via TrekCulture. All right, thanks very much, folks. Let's get to it. Those Old Scientists opens up very unexpectedly with the animated world of the USS Cerritos and of course Star Trek Lower Decks. Boimler and Mariner, who are sitting in their bunk discussing this mission that they're about to go on. There's a blink and you'll miss it, bit of colour in that cupboard that Boimler is closing. I wonder if that will come back. I am delighted then to say, now we knew Jack Quaid and Tony Newsom were going to be guest starring in this episode. What we didn't know is that Eugene Cordero and Noel Wells guest star as well. So, we have the full main cast of Star Trek Lower Decks cameos in this week's episode. So I'm loving that straight away. Also, just for the Cerritos being in this episode as well. As they're talking about their mission, which is of course to inspect this portal, this device on Cromelth B, Boimler tells Mariner that actually this was discovered by Pike and the crew of the Enterprise. Well, technically the second Enterprise, because the first Enterprise, and Mariner of course goes, "Oh, Boimler, you're so boring, I don't care." Shout out to the history tie-in, of course. Geez, I wonder if that will come back. Once they beam down to the planet, Tendi gently reminds Boimler that actually it was Orions who discovered this. Orion scientists, no less. But of course Boimler's like, well, there were no Orion scientists back 120 years ago. They were Orion pirates. Tendi does not take very kindly to this. In fact, she's a bit like, that is super judgmental. And Boimler's like, oh no, so sorry, it would have been a historically accurate, all the banter up. Also, can I just say, Rutherford's excitement for tachyons up. Tachyons, of course, you know, arriving around wormholes, arriving around time travel as well. Absolutely bloody loving it. In talking about the old crew back then, obviously Boimler's a big fan of Spock, but Mariner's a big fan of Uhura, and talks about, at least Uhura knew how to have a life outside of work. Well, alluding back to episodes like Charlie X, where she's singing in the mess hall. Once we get down then to the planet, we see this portal and Boimler wants to get a picture with it, and we see one of those hollow imagers from Star Trek Voyager taken up as well, which I just love seeing that time over, because it's good tech. Why would you throw it away? Unfortunately, it carries a slight radioactive power and activates the portal, which then flings our lovely Boimler through. Okay, right. Just rapid succession of first, the portal's portaling me, taken up, and then Tendy's like, well, stop lurching toward it then, taken up as if he has a choice, and then just as he's getting sucked through, he goes, remember me, doom. Beverly Crusher getting sucked through a portal and remember me, anyone? Yeah, I thought so. Then suddenly we see the portal again, but it looks a bit different this time, doesn't it? And we see Una, Spock, and La'an standing in front of it as a very real Boimler is flung through the portal and comments going, "You all look so realistic." Passes out. Oh, you better believe that realistic line's getting it up. And then we get something that I've watched this a few times now and I nearly cried each time. Taken up for the animated intro for Strange New Worlds. The ship is beautifully realized in animation. We see, all the scenes that we're used to seeing just in an animation style, and then the bloody nacelle slug taken up. That's incredible. And oh my god, it just keeps going. And then at the end, just after they drop the nacelle slug at Starbase 1 and they warp off, who should appear but the space koala? And sorry, full credit goes to my dad, Paul Ferrick, for that one, who spotted that space koala before I did and said he would never let me let it down if I didn't put his name in this video. Then the episode goes into something more traditional in terms of Strange New Worlds. We open up with a captain's log by Pike, and they're talking about taking a shipment of grain to Setlik 2. For me, that's 2 Easter eggs right there. Shipment of grain reminds me straight away of the trouble with Tribbles and the whole poisoned grain situation on Station K7. And Setlik 2, of course, we know that in about 100 years or so, Setlik 3 is going to face a massacre from the Cardassians that poor old Miles O'Brien is going to be a part of. Before we see what's going on in sickbay, you see Pike and Number 1 walking through the corridors, and she is turning Boimler's comm badge over and over in her hand, and she says, "We've actually done a scan on this, and it turns out it's not just a Delta, it's a comm badge as well." And Pike goes, "But flipping it open is the best bit." I agree, take it up. I just had a thought. Wouldn't Pike have already seen a tappy communicator like that? Section 31. Ash Tyler had one on the bridge of the Discovery. What's that? Oh yeah, that's quite classified. Also love hearing that TNG style chirp. 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 There we are. Now you can use that as your message minder. In sickbay then, we see Boimler, who is, by the way, did anyone else know how tall Jack Quaid is? In fact, I mention it on the Ready Room because Jack Quaid, Jonathan Frakes, who obviously directed this episode, and Tony Newsom all guest on the Ready Room. And Tony and Jack are both quite tall. So now they're joking that, like, on the Cerritos, Shax and Ransom are like 8 feet tall each when you see them next to each other. Because, like, Boimler's like one of the tallest members of the crew now. But anyway, at this point he's lying out flat, which is brilliant because we get to see his boots taken up with those patterns on it. Oh my god, it looks so good. He wakes up, he sees Pike and goes, "Computer, end program." Because that would be natural. You wouldn't be expecting to see these giants of history standing in front of you. And then when nothing happens, he kind of goes, "Yeah," and then just like touches Pike. Oh my god. Just, oh my god. Sorry, taken up. While he's sitting there, they're able to say, like, "Yes, look, I'm from the future, not going to reveal anything." But he doesn't have to go through all of the, "I'm not actually from the future." And then Pike cracks a joke, and Boimler just breaks up with his Boimler laugh going, "A funny captain, what's happening?" Taken up. In case you hadn't noticed this week, folks, there's going to be a few ups. Now, we get a bit of a surprise when Una walks up to the bio bed and he leaps off it, as though he's just been electrified. He takes his comm badge back and his head is down and he leaves with La'an, and Una's a bit like, does he know something about my future? Somebody from the future looks at you like you've 2 heads. You start to think that maybe something's going on. We don't get an answer at this point because he goes out into the corridor and he starts to play with the displays, and La'an says, "Don't touch that." And he goes, yes, I'm sorry. And she goes, "Look, you've already got rules for time travel from one time traveler to another," which is a nice callback to tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. She's like, "Look, will you please stop changing anything? Little changes here could end up destroying your future timeline." And he goes, "Absolutely, I'm done. Worf's honor." Just give it an up. We then cut to, now this actually did make tears of laughter roll down my face. So we cut to the Ready Room, which is also kind of a general work room, which is cool. And we have Ensign's log, stardate, the past. And Boimler's walking around and he's like, "Okay, I'm supposed to stand here. I don't really know what I'm supposed to do." And then he sees Pike's saddle. And he's like, oh my god, touching the saddle can't change the past, right? Okay, here we go. And he walks up and he goes, puts his hand on it and he goes, "Whoa." Taken up. So then what he does is he walks up and he's like, "I can't not." Throws his leg over it and goes, "Riker!" up. And I mean, so it's so good because, yeah, of course, but knowing that Jonathan Frakes was in the room with him when Jack Quaid improvised that line and they left it in the episode, my friends, you better believe that is my Latinum up of the week. We get a very short exchange between Boimler and Uhura, and then next up, we're down on the planet again because we're saying goodbye to Boimler. He's going to go back through the portal, and first of all, we see Boimler freaking out over the classic tricorder design, and he's like, oh my god, this is amazing. You know, sure, they get smaller and a bit more efficient and less likely to, you know, explode in the future, and Peggy just goes, explode, you say? And it's just brushed off completely. That's an up. Spock is scanning, and he smiles at Boimler. He laughs because Boimler suggests something that might be up to chance, and Spock finds the idea hilarious. Very creepy. It's an up from me. And Boimler goes to Mbenga and says, is this new, or is this been going on for a while? And Mbenga says, no, this is definitely new. But they've got to beam back up again because we've got some visitors in orbit. We've got Orions. Now, it's a beautiful update on the Orion ship from the remastered original series. Again, please take an up for that. Now, they see it when they arrive on the bridge. Boimler has a boimgasm on the bridge because this is the Enterprise bridge. He's like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. It's just, because we're all him. We're all this viewpoint character. We are all the massive fans. That's something they speak about as well on the Ready Room this week, is about Boimler is the biggest Star Trek fan of them all. He is all of us. You know, he's freaking out exactly the same way I would freak out if I was walking onto the bridge of that ship. It's a bit bloody cool. They say they're doing routine scans, and the Orions say that's lovely. And then Boimler, having already freaked out about the fact that it's, oh my god, the NCC 1701-nothing. And then Lan goes, what would come after the dash? Nice. Convinces Pike that these are peaceful Orions. They are not, in fact, pirates. So Boimler is left with a very red face when they beam up the portal and warp out of there. Oops. Pike is feeling a bit frustrated at this point, and he sits down for a chat with Una in the Ready Room. Now, he admits he made a mistake. He got very excited with the way Boimler reacted around him because it gave him a little bit of hope that maybe he's got a bit of a brighter future. He has no way of knowing that, but it's still, there is a bit of an ego stroke to all of this. And Una says, Una says, you make a mistake? Never. And he goes, yeah, okay, I deserve that. But then she comments on, well, look, at least you're getting hero worshipped. I'm getting, like, fear thrown at me. Which is, yeah, like, again, like I said, time traveler freaks out when they meet you. In the mess hall, Boimler's trying to chill out. He types something into a pad, and Chapel and Ortegas appear beside him, and we get the take it up for the Boimler scream. God, I love that Boimler scream. And they sit down and they tease him about, you know, has the chronoton poisoning started yet? Which actually isn't bloody funny, Christine. All right, now tell you why. Because look at what happened to poor Yor. And look what happened to poor Giorgio. And look what presumably happened to poor Spock. Now, it is of course a complete joke, and I love it. They talk about, like, what's the future like? Do we have jetpacks? And Ortega goes, we have jetpacks now. And like, yeah, but like smaller jetpacks. Taken up. They say, you know, are you coming to movie night on Friday? And he goes, oh, is that for Pike's birthday? And they're like, how do you know Pike's birthday? And he's like, oh, that's a holiday in the future. He's like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. That's an up. Spock walks in for a date with Chapel and smiles in the creepiest way possible. Taken up. I like to be scared. After a little bit, Boimler catches up with Chapel in the turbolift and probably says something he shouldn't. Basically, he's like, look, I gotta know, have I broken Spock? And she's going, what? Well, he's smiling and he's laughing, and I've read every book on Spock that there is. I know all about his upbringing on Vulcan, I know all about his pet Salat, taken up, and we know all about his relationship with his mom and dad, you know, and none of this has, you know, maybe this is just a phase, this is great, he's gonna get over this. And of course he doesn't realize this, but he's actually ripping out her heart and stomping on it. And when he does realize, he's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. Because of course there's not a hint of meanness in Boimler. He didn't realize that he was upsetting her so much that she is the cause for his happiness. Boimler has realized that, you know, he needs to get back to his own time before he causes any more damage. So the problem is that on the bridge, there's a slightly tense moment, almost, where Spock says, with all due respect, Captain, there is nothing to go through. It literally cannot be done. I can't track this ship. And Boimler's like, I could do it. You could just, like, not look. And Una goes, we can't just not look. Cutting to a scene where Boimler is jerry-rigging the systems and they're all just looking away, taken up for the hilarity of that. And also then Una goes, is this a good idea? And Pike goes, probably not, I'm just going with it. Taken up for that as well. They do catch up with the ship, and just before they make contact, Boimler does sort of suggest from across the room in a sort of a loud whisper where Pike goes, I can hear you, I'm literally across the room. And Boimler goes, oh, I'm sorry, I thought just with the acoustics of this thing, taken up. But then he also just comments on, the fact that the captain is wonderful and great and has really great hair. And thank you for saying it to him, taken up as well. Pike goes, anyone have suggestions? Boimler's hand goes up, not you. Taken up. That's fair, but Boimler is able to give him the suggestion that Orions would see a trade for the portal as something worthy of respect. And of course the Enterprise happens to be carrying a ton of grain aboard, which the Orion captain will accept as payment. We're back down on the planet now, the original planet. We've got the portal in place, we've got it booted up, and we've got enough for one trip. We all know where this is going, don't we? Anyway, we've got enough for one trip. Boimler says, look, it was amazing to meet you all. This is the best day of my life. Thank you so much. And he stands in the portal and then boom, Mariner is straight through the portal. And straight away she's like, oh my God, you guys are amazing. Is Uhura here? Taken up. Also, she's got the sleeves rolled up, taken up. Fun behind the scenes fact, she didn't even have full length sleeves. They didn't bother making them. They made kind of a 3/4 length and then they just folded it once and put something in to keep it there. Now, there you go. The more you know. Speaking of sleeves, it's just off screen, but you just hear Mariner going, rank on the sleeves, I don't know. Taken up. We're back then on the ship. The captain's log continuing says, we now have literally double the trouble when it comes to time travelers. They're sitting around the table in the ready room. Mariner and Boimler are their Marinerist and Boimleristist. He's like, look, it's not that I don't appreciate it, but if you just give me one more second. And she was like, I was worried about you, man. What if you'd gone to some sort of dystopia in San Francisco in the middle of some riots? First of all, take a flipping up for reference to the Bell riots in DS9 past tense, which we absolutely love. And I love them when it cuts to Una and Spock being like, have you noticed how weirdly specific their references are? Indeed, taken up. And then cutting back to Mariner where it goes, look, I know this is weird and all, but no one could ever have prepared me for how hot young Spock was. Taken up. They do talk about how, although accidentally, it's sort of Mariner who got everything, kind of going here. And she said, in my defense, that thing has like 0 instructions on it, which is true, which is why I'm giving that an up. But also, if you just look at the way she reacts to things, like she's kind of like told, hold on now, and she just kind of slides her hands back across the table, like into an up. They talk about the fact that this thing is powered by uranium, which they don't have any of, and there hasn't been any of in over 100 years. And Mariner just goes, well, couldn't we just cook some up? And they're all like, oh, come on now. And, Spock says, actually, we could. Mariner turns to Boimler, just goes, hot Spock agrees with me. Taken up. Spock says, if we make a mistake with this, we could end up destroying half the ship. And Mariner just goes, well, that doesn't sound very logical to me. That's what you sound like. Taken up. Just notice the fact that Mariner's just touching everything. She's just so fidgety. She is the person fidget spinners were invented for. But the assignments are coming down. They've got to translate what's on the device. So, Uhura, being our local translator, Mariner straight away goes, oh, I'll work with her. I'm really good at linguistics. And Boimler goes, are you? And she goes, this is Uhura. Don't ruin this for me or I will end your life. Oh. But then she volunteers him to work with Spock because he has done an elective in material synthesis at the Academy. Boimler does a Boimler run through the corridor to reach Mariner after this, and they talk about how, oh God, he thinks he might have done something to break Spock and it's all very logical, and Mariner goes, oh my God, did you talk to him about his a lot? You're such a fanboy. Taken up. There's a gag as well about, if everything goes wrong and they can't get back, they'll have to go and live off the grid. Mariner goes, I require the grid. I'll thrive off grid. Reminding me, of course, about what was going to happen to the crew of the Enterprise E in Star Trek First Contact, Gravette Island, no less. But then number 1 arrives up behind Mariner and Boimler kind of yelps and goes off again with the kind of power section 31 walk. Meanwhile, Mariner turns around and goes, ooh, hello. Una just goes, is there something wrong with him? And Mariner's just like, oh no, you see, he's got a poster of you in his bunk, and it just sits for a second. And then Una goes, sorry, what? And Mariner just goes, oh, a poster. And Una goes, like a pin-up poster? And Mariner goes, yeah, it's a poster that's pinned up. Are we talking about the same thing here? And then Una just goes, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. And she walks away. The whole exchange, brilliant comic timing on both parts. That was so good. We finally get the team up that Mariner's been waiting for the whole episode, which is Mariner and Uhura are sitting down beside each other. And it's so funny because Uhura's trying to work and Mariner is just like, hi. You know, she's there trying to be like, look, I know I shouldn't say this, but, you know, I've been so excited to meet you and this is so cool and you're so wonderful. And Uhura's just kind of like, what are you talking about? You know, because from Uhura's point of view, she's 22. Like, she's barely started her career yet. Whereas Mariner knows all the stories of what Uhura goes on to do, which is a bit of a badass. And she does talk about that. But then Uhura does comment on the fact, like, you know, there is a bit of pressure in knowing that. You know, like, I can't even translate this bloody, you know, these glyphs on this machine. And suddenly I'm supposed to go on and, you know, speak and make first contact and do all these things with these different races. It's a lot. And Mariner goes, and the best thing to do, let's take a break. And Uhura's like, I don't do breaks. And Marina's like, yeah, I'm starting to pick up on that. Which I like that as up as well. And then Mariner quotes regulations that say Starfleet officers must take frequent nutrition breaks. And Uhura's like, you know Starfleet regulations? And she's like, yeah, there's a whole load of them to help you slack off. Come on. Up. We go then back to the mess hall, where Mariner is making Orion hurricanes for herself, Ortegas, and Uhura. Uhura's secretly working under the table until they catch her and make her stop, which, you know, come on, take a break, like. And they talk a little bit more again about Pike's birthday party, and Mariner's like, oh my god, I should totally go and just take a whole lot of pictures to be in history books and freak my mom out. First of all, up. Then they're like, you seriously? She's like, no, I'm just joking, maybe. Up. They do manage to get Uhura just to relax for a second, at which she downs her hurricane, so fair play, Uhura. Uhura can probably drink me under the table. And then she puts the pad down, which allows Ortegas to see the pad, and Ortegas actually recognizes the glyphs. She recognizes them from something she saw on Starbase Earhart, obviously a reference to Amelia Earhart, which makes me very happy, and which someone tried to sell her a Domjot table. Now, I just love that deep cut reference because, you know, human play Domjot. They're able to figure out it's Nausicaan. Haven't heard the Nausicaans in Strange New Worlds, so that's pretty cool. But we know the Nausicaans' first contact that happened a while back anyway because they were in Star Trek Enterprise. But yes, this spurs Uhura on to be like, oh, hang on, this is ancient Nausicaan. Now I can translate this, and there's a big yay moment. Someone just goes, what is Domjot? And Mariner goes, oh, it's kind of like a form of billiards that Nausicaans are really bad at but insist on placing large bets on. Taken up. Now, on his own mission with Spock, Boimler is there, and he suddenly gets grilled about what he said to Chapel in the turbolift, which did upset her. Spock is gentle, for a Vulcan, about it, but he does suggest that Boimler's reactions to Spock's explorations with humor and with emotion suggest that a future is coming where he will not be experimenting with that anymore. And Boimler's like, oh, does it have to suggest that? Oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be responsible for any more time incursions. And Spock says, well, whatever you said, you upset Christine. And I kind of like this Spock to the rescue thing, because he's still so coldly logical about it. So taken up. And they have their Heronium mix, and they put it in, and they close it, and then Spock goes, I'm curious about this chance. Are you feeling lucky? First of all, up. And then Boimler's like, no, not really. And so they put on their eye protective goggles, they close it, they turn it on, and then the sparks start flying, and just doesn't even take a second, doesn't warn him. Spock just... Are sparks good? No, seek cover. And Boimler runs, and then the thing explodes, and we get a proper Boimler scream. Up for the scream, up for the sequence, and my god, up for the two of them leaning out past the pillar afterwards. The whole scene, brilliant comic timing. Absolutely loved it. Unfortunately, there's no Heronium. Oh dear. Now, Boimler's feeling a bit bummed after this, so he goes down to the engine room and he bumps into Pelia, which is actually really nice. There is that bit of an exchange. She goes, oh, are you one of those time-traveling kids? And he's like, I am indeed a time traveler, and I'm also a man. And Pelia's like, all right then. But it's a nice little exchange because she goes, there's nothing more soothing than being around these noises. And Boimler's like, Yeah, basically, he thinks that's it. They're trapped now. They're done. And she says, look, I'm a Lanthonite. You know, I've lived for thousands of years. And she says, someone along the way told me that sometimes you just have to pretend to be the person you want to be until you accidentally become that person. It's a lovely little bit of advice. Basically, it's fake it till you make it. And I love it because it gives Boimler a bit of an idea. So, first of all, lovely, the whole exchange is lovely. Now, he then goes to the shuttle bay, where he's thinking he's going to go to the Orions and see, well, the portal's useless. So why not give them back the portal and get the grain back, because that grain is genetically engineered, that it's only going to grow on Setlik 2. It's basically, you know, the settlers on Setlik 2 are, you know, they're in a bit of trouble without that grain. So, you know, he's kind of sneaking in, he's got his flashlight and he turns around, and Mariner scares the absolute shit out of him. Up. Because she goes, hi, and he goes, holy Q! Up. And she's like, don't say that, they haven't heard of Q yet. Besides, they've got a whole Trelane thing going on here. Squire of Gothos, amazing, taken up. They have a fun little heart-to-heart, and they're like, this era is weird. You know, Mariner goes, have you noticed how slowly everybody speaks here? Boimler goes, yeah, and quietly. Because, yes, these are two completely different styles of Star Trek, and it's really quite fun, and I like it being mentioned, so taken up for that one as well. Yes, there are still more pages. But there's a great moment, there's a fist bump where Mariner calls it, ooh, sneaky boim, I like it. They get caught by La'an because, you know, they're trying to bypass security systems, like, they really should, bypass like, communications at least. They really should be, like, not doing that. La'an brings them to Captain Pike, and Pike's had enough of them at this stage. Because he's tried to be calm, he's tried to listen to them, and he's like, right, you're confined to quarters for the rest of this journey, and then we're going to drop you off at Starbase 1, and then you're Starbase 1's problem. Mariner, as she often does, she says, look, this is my fault. And I tell you why, it's because I don't think Boimler can handle being thrown in the brig by somebody dressed up as for Halloween. Taken up. I mean, yeah, you know? And then Pike goes, really? And Mariner goes, yeah, there was a whole thing with contouring the jaw. And Boimler goes, yeah, it was a whole process. Taken up. Makeup's hard. And Pike's little smile as well. Oh, just, this whole scene is just bloody lovely. But then we get to the root of something else that's been going on. Do you remember we mentioned Pike's birthday? Well, Pike has realized that Boimler has been encouraging the celebration of Pike's birthday this year. Pike really doesn't want that. Because it then finds out, it gets very serious for a second. There's a moment where Boimler and Mariner are kind of like, you should probably enjoy the birthdays you can, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know how many you might have left. And Pike, of course, knows his future, so he goes, okay, I think I know what you're talking about. I'm not referring to something that's in my future. I'm talking about something in my past. It just cuts back to Mariner going, oh, so you know about the chair up. But no, what's actually getting on Pike is that this is the first birthday where he is going to be 1 year older than the age his father was when his father died. He talks about how he and his father didn't get along and they always argued and they never got to resolve their issues. So his plan for this birthday was to go to an ice moon near Setlik 2, take a bottle of whiskey and just spend a weekend having a conversation with thin air, having the argument with his dad, and that was his plan for this birthday. I'm not going to get too heavy or anything, that hit me right behind my comm badge, so that's definitely an up as well. But Boimler does have a very, very kind of lovely point. He goes, imagine how many people on this ship would want to have that conversation with you if you were gone. And Pike really doesn't have something to say about that. It's like, oof. He sort of gently changes the subject and says, you know, in a way I can understand how it must be for you two. I can only imagine how I would feel if I was setting foot on Archer's Enterprise, taking automatic up for a reference to Archer and the Enterprise, you know, and then Mariner goes, I know, right, the NX-01, yeah, of course, yeah, taken up as well. And then you see Boimler's eyes start to light up. And he's like, oh, hold on. We cut then to a briefing in the ready room. Boimler and Mariner may have twigged it. Boimler, first of all, says, look, I know our appearance here has been a hassle, and I would like to apologize to you all with a limerick. He is immediately shot down by Una. Just get to the point. Take it up. They explain that in the future, they visited Archer's NX-01. They discovered that the hull was comprised of heronium. So, you know, the first thing is like, okay, so do we dig an NX-class ship out of mothballs? And Boimler goes, actually, no, because Mariner was paying attention. We didn't really see that one coming. And Spock goes, it is a surprise because she normally does not pay attention. It's just the deadpan delivery, just another up. It's ridiculous at this stage. What they have remembered is that while Boimler was getting really excited about, the plating and the grapplers, and Mariner says, look, no one cares about the grapplers. Then we cut to Anne going, I love grapplers. Taken up. Mariner remembered that there is a tradition when it comes to naming ships and building ships, which Pike then twigs and says, hold on. The tradition is any ship that shares the name of a ship that went before it, construction begins with a piece of that old ship. Now, this actually is a two-pronged thing. So it works perfectly in this episode, but it also ties into the most recent episode, or the recent season of Star Trek Picard, when there was this whole talk that the Titan A does in fact contain rather a lot of the original Luna-class Titan. There's a wonderful image of it in dry dock with the two ships, I suppose the one ship, side by side, that was shared by Dave Plass and was rendered by Twitter user Pundus. It's really, really cool. Hopefully it's somewhere around me, but if it isn't, do check that one out. And it does explain that yes, there would be a bit of the NX-01 with its Heronium in NCC 1701. And wouldn't you believe it, it's in the engineering. And they take it. And Pelias not very happy. She's like, be careful with my floor, I use that. And Spock says, it's illogical to think that you would be the only one. It's just the back and forth. It's just up. It's so good. What we get, that which I wasn't expecting, is we get some fangirl moments from Ortegas and Uhura. So Ortegas is just like, oh, I love that NX-01. Travis Mayweather is like my hero. Love to hear a bit of love for Travis. Loving it. Turns out that her middle school was named after Travis Mayweather. And Uhura, of course, and I think we all understand why there's this hero worship there, is like, Hoshi Sado was on that ship. Did you know she spoke 86 languages? Oh my God, yeah. Let's not talk about what happens to Hoshi yeah. Anyway, so up for Hoshi, up for everyone, yay! And they're like, oh my God, do we sound like? And the camera cuts to Boimler and Mariner. They're like, we totally sound like that. But yes, they were able to synthesize Heronium. Now the only thing they need is to set things right with the Orions. Just before we leave this scene, we had a thought when we first watched the episode and went, hold on, what about Enterprise Bingo? Wasn't the Scorch like the oldest bit of the ship? No, so that is on the exterior, that's the hull. This is the like literally like the rivet, like laying down keel. So that's the difference, just in case anyone's wondering there, because I thought that one myself. Now, before Boimler and Mariner are to beam down to the planet, they're sitting there in the transporter room, and Mariner goes up to Una and says, I might have given you the wrong idea. Whatever way I described the poster of you in the future, no, you are the poster girl for Starfleet. And by that I mean, you are the literal face of recruitment in Starfleet. And Boimler comes over, it was hero worship. He was like, yeah, ad astra per aspera. And you can see how touched Una is by this. What amazing tie back as well to that episode. Of course that isn't up from me. It's beautiful. There is a gag, like, Una's like, you could have led with that. And she'd be right to say it. But oh my goodness. Just, oh my goodness. And then they're about to beam down, and sure, wouldn't you know it, before they go, they're standing on the transporter pad, and Mr. Spock goes, Mr. Boimler, live long and prosper. And Boimler's just frozen. Pike gives the order to energize, and he goes, you also live and... That's an up. It was so sweet. Down on the planet, the Orions are waiting for them, and they're kind of like, why are we back here? Why are we back here? So there's a explanation about, like, okay, so Boimler and Mariner contacted them to ask them to come back. It was without Pike explaining it. We know, we watched the episode. So what it really is, it's actually setting history correct, because history records that the Orions discovered this device. So that's what they're going to do. They're going to let the Orions take full credit as scientists for discovering this device. The only cost being, just let them use it this one time. The Orions like, this is really sweet. And they say, look, we probably shouldn't say too much about the future. Like, they explain that they're from the future, but it's a brighter future where, in that future, there is an Orion serving in Starfleet. Her name is Tendi, or, Mistress of the Winter Storm. And he just goes, oh, there's a Tendi on my ship, Asteria. And they're like, yep. And he's like, how could you know that? And Mariner's just like, because we're time travelers. I feel like he hasn't been listening. taken up as well. I just love it. Anyway, they set things square. The Orions are delighted because they're just like, oh, we get to be called scientists as opposed to pirates, which is really nice. They plug in the machine. They say goodbye. They thank everyone for everyone. You know, Pike says, look, with all respect, please don't come back. They turn the machine on and we can hear Rutherford and Tendi through the other side. And they're like, will we come through? And Pike just goes, no! Up. Anyway, Mariner and Boimler finally go back through. They arrive on the planet. There's a beautiful moment where Boimler's just like, do you know what, Tendi? You were absolutely right. It was Orion's. She's like, I know it was. You know, my great-great-grandmother was on that ship. And it's just lovely. They beam back up to the Cerritos, and then we just get a lovely final scene where Boimler is there looking at the poster of Una, Ad Astra Per Aspera, and then Ransom walks around the corner and says, oh, Una Chin Riley, the hottest officer in the fleet of all time. It broke me. It broke me because, as we know, Jerry O'Connell, voice of Ransom, is married to Rebecca Romaine, the actor of Una Chin Riley in real life. I just love this game. And of course, he drops the little hint as well. It's like, oh, by the way, it was great that, you know, Mariner fought so hard to get this assignment. And of course, she's like, no, I totally didn't. And Boimler's like, oh my God, you got us placed in this assignment. Thank you. That's all, just so many ups. Now, that's nearly there. We're nearly at the end. Everyone who wants, you know, who's kind of refilling their drinks, because that scene ends. And then we cut to another animated scene where we see the Constitution-class Enterprise fully realized in animation. We cut to Pike's quarters, and you best believe that we have Pike, Una, Mbenga, Chapel, Spock, Ortegas, La'an, and Uhura are all there, and they are all animated, and it is fabulous. They blame it on the Orion hurricanes, the special ingredient that the Orions gave them that, you know, will, like Mariner says, no, that will ruin your life. That will ruin your life. Spock's arm is going all wibbly wobbly. Basically, they're on psychedelics, which is why everything feels very two-dimensional. And then Mbenga just goes, what the hell is in this thing? And it ends. I have no hesitation in saying that, first of all, that scene alone, like obviously the whole episode, but that scene alone is why this is getting the dilithium up for this season for Strange New Worlds. It's not really a shocker. It's a really happy, yeah, we hoped it would be this. We confirmed it would be this. And folks, just one thing. This is, without question, TrekCulture as a channel and my own personal favorite episode of Star Trek since it came back on the air. Hands down. I've loved it. You see me. Some weeks I get told, you know, Sean, you like these episodes too much. No. This is my number one. This is TrekCulture's number one. You can put that on Wikipedia because that is fact. My God, this episode was perfect. I'm not going to lie to you. I have no idea what the number of ups is for this episode, but I know we've broken records. And also, like, I'm going to buy the down counter a drink or something because they just did not work this week at all. There it is. My God, the long-awaited Lower Decks crossover has now happened. It was amazing. It was so much fun. It was everything that I wanted it to be. Whew. Folks, thank you so much. Did you love this episode as well? Did you think it was brilliant? Did you think it was very cheesy and you didn't like it at all? If that's the case, lighten up. It's all a bit of fun. Remember, folks, you can catch us over on Twitter at TrekCulture. You can catch us on Blue Sky at TrekCulture, and you can catch us on Instagram at TrekCultureYT. I'm at Sean Ferrick on Twitter and Blue Sky, and Chris is at ChrisEdit on both Twitter and Instagram. For the love of God, as I say, that man probably needs like a hug or something at this point. I don't think he's slept since Friday. Folks, this has been so much fun. Like we joke about, you know, all of the things happening close together. It's brilliant. No, it's so much fun and we're so happy. And I'm so excited for Subspace Rhapsody. Now that will be coming not this week, but the following week. We have Under the Cloak of War coming this Thursday. We have our podcast, which is going to drop Tuesday as well. So we will be discussing this episode as well as some super secret projects that we've got coming up. Our guest this week will be the wonderful Sam Cockings of Trek Yards. Everyone, you look after yourself until I see you again. Make sure, most of all, that you are kind to yourself, you are kind to others, our friends in Ukraine, Slava Ukrainia, to everyone. You also live long.